The discovery. The nebula shimmered like crushed jewels scattered across black velvet. Captain Mira Valen stood on the bridge of the Covenant's edge, watching the cosmic clouds twist and spiral through the view screen. Her crew worked quietly around her, their bioluminescent skin patterns flickering with concentration as they monitored scanning equipment. "Captain, we're picking up something unusual," reported her sensor officer, his antennae twitching nervously. "There's a massive energy signature hidden in the nebula's electromagnetic interference." Mira leaned forward, her amber eyes narrowing. "Show me." The view screen shifted, revealing a shape that didn't belong. It was enormous, dwarfing even their largest battle cruiser. The design was unlike anything in the known galaxy, angular yet flowing, brutal yet elegant. Weapons arrays covered its hull like the scales of some ancient predator. "Identification?" Mira asked, though she already suspected the answer would trouble her. "Unknown, Captain. The material composition doesn't match any civilization in our database. The design predates everything we have on record by at least 3 centuries. 3 centuries. The Great Silence. Mira's breath caught. Ambassador Kreeth approached from behind, his multiple arms clasped in concern. "Captain, that configuration, the weapon placements, the power distribution, could it be?" "A human warship," Mira whispered. The words felt dangerous on her tongue. Humanity. The ghost species. Stories told to cadets as cautionary tales about civilizations that burned too bright and too fast. 300 years ago, they had simply vanished, leaving behind empty worlds and silent stations. Most believed they'd destroyed themselves. Others whispered darker theories. "Assemble a boarding team," Mira ordered. "Ambassador, you're with me, if there's any chance of understanding what happened to them." "Captain, that ship could still be armed," warned her tactical officer. "If it's automated, then we'll know soon enough. Prepare Shuttle Bay 3. The boarding shuttle detached smoothly, carrying Mira, Kreeth, and a squad of 6 soldiers toward the derelict. As they approached, Mira couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The warship's hull was scarred with battle damage, yet somehow pristine, as if time itself had forgotten to claim it. Their shuttle docked with an exterior airlock. Chief Engineer Dax Corin worked quickly to interface with the ancient systems. "This technology, it's responding to our inputs, but the architecture is completely foreign. It's like trying to speak to a machine that dreams." The airlock hissed open, revealing darkness beyond. Mira activated her helmet lamp and stepped inside. The corridor stretched ahead, lined with panels that suddenly flickered to life at her approach. Blue emergency lighting pulsed like a heartbeat. "Something's activating," Dax muttered, studying his scanner. "Power levels rising throughout the ship." "Captain, we need to—" A deep vibration rolled through the vessel. The lights intensified, shifting from blue to white. Symbols appeared on the walls, human writing, Mira realized with shock. She'd seen it only in historical archives. "Multiple systems coming online," Dax reported, his voice rising in alarm. "Life support, artificial gravity, and—" "Captain, there's something in Cryobay 7. A biological signature." Mira's heart hammered. "Show me the way." They moved quickly through corridors that grew warmer with each step, as if the ship itself was waking from a long sleep. Finally, they reached a massive chamber filled with hundreds of cylindrical pods. Most were dark, their occupants long dead. But one pod at the chamber's center glowed with active status indicators. Mira approached slowly. Through the frosted glass, she could make out a figure inside. Human, male, young, perhaps mid-20s in human years. Dark hair, strong features, wearing some kind of military uniform. "The pod's automated revival sequence has been triggered," Dax said, studying the console. "It's responding to our presence." "Captain, it's waking him up. Can you stop it?" "Not without potentially killing him." Mira made her decision. "Then we wait." The pod hissed, releasing centuries-old atmosphere. The glass slid open with a pneumatic sigh. The man inside gasped, his eyes flying open, dark brown, wide with confusion and fear. He tried to sit up, coughing, his muscles weak from extended sleep. Mira raised her hands, showing she was unarmed. "Easy, you're safe. Can you understand me?" The man's eyes focused on her, taking in her alien features. For a moment, terror flashed across his face. Then something else? Recognition, perhaps. Or resignation. "Where?" His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "Where am I?" "You're aboard the warship Vanguard," Mira said gently. I'm Captain Mira Valen of the Coalition Fleet. What's your name? The man's brow furrowed as if searching through fog. Torres. Lieutenant Jack Torres, Earth Defense Force. His eyes widened suddenly. The swarm. Did we stop them? I don't know what you mean, Mira admitted. Lieutenant Torres, I need you to understand something. You've been asleep for a very long time. How long? Mira exchanged glances with Kreeth before answering. 300 years, humanity. Disappeared 3 centuries ago. As far as we know, you might be the last of your kind. Torres stared at her, and in his eyes, Mira saw something break and reform simultaneously. Grief and determination forging into something harder. Then they're still out there, he whispered, and nobody knows they're coming. Echoes of the past, the medical bay of the Covenant's edge, hummed with soft blue light as Medical Officer Therawin examined Lieutenant Torres. The human sat on the edge of the diagnostic bed, still wearing his ancient uniform, his eyes distant and haunted. His physiology is remarkable, Therawin murmured to Mira. Her delicate features creased with fascination. The cellular preservation is perfect. Whatever technology put him in stasis. We have nothing comparable. Mira watched Torres through the observation window. 3 days had passed since his awakening, and he'd barely spoken beyond tactical debriefings. He answered questions about the Vanguard systems, helped Chief Engineer Dax interface with the ship's core, but volunteered nothing about himself or humanity's disappearance. She entered the medical bay. Torres looked up, and for a brief moment his guard dropped. She saw exhaustion there and something deeper, a loneliness that spanned centuries. How are you feeling? She asked, like I fell asleep in one universe and woke up in another. He managed a weak smile. Your medical officer says I'm healthy. That's something, I suppose. Mira sat across from him, maintaining a respectful distance. We've been analyzing the Vanguard's logs. Most are corrupted, but we've recovered fragments. You fought something called the Void Swarm? Torres's jaw tightened. That's what we called them. Others had different names. They came from somewhere else. Not our dimension, not our reality. They consumed everything, matter, energy, life itself. We fought them for 40 years before what? Before humanity realized we couldn't win. Not alone. He looked at her directly now. We sent requests for help to every civilization we'd encountered. Do you know how many answered? Mira felt a chill. None, exactly. They thought we'd brought the swarm on ourselves through reckless experimentation. Maybe they were right. Maybe we deserved what happened. His voice hardened. But the children didn't deserve it. The civilians didn't deserve it. What did humanity do? Torres stood pacing the small room. Operation Last Stand. We built 12 warships like the Vanguard. Titans designed to hold choke points while evacuation fleets escaped to deep space. I was assigned to hold Sector 9. He paused at the window, staring out at the stars. We were supposed to buy 3 weeks. I don't know if we succeeded. Mira joined him at the window. The logs show the Vanguard fought for 73 days straight before jumping to this location. You held far longer than 3 weeks. He turned to her, surprise flickering in his eyes. 73 days? Your ship's AI, Oracle, it calls itself, has been very protective of your privacy. But it shared the battle records. Lieutenant Torres, you didn't just hold the line. You shattered 3 swarm convergence points. Millions of lives were saved because of you. For the first time, Torres's composure cracked. His shoulders sagged, and he braced himself against the window. I don't remember most of it. Just fragments. Fire and darkness and the sound of Oracle counting down enemy formations. He looked at his hands. I remember giving the order to jump, and then nothing. Mira found herself reaching out, stopping just before touching his shoulder. The gesture hung between them and offered comfort, a bridge across species and centuries. You're not alone anymore, she said quietly. Whatever's coming, whatever the swarm might be doing out there, you don't have to face it alone. Torres met her eyes, and something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, understanding, the beginning of trust. That evening, Mira found herself in the Vanguard's observation deck. Chief Engineer Dax had established a neural link between the ships, allowing limited access to the human vessel's intact sections. She'd told herself she came here to review technical data, but truthfully, she wanted to understand the people who'd built this monument to war and sacrifice. Captain Valen. Torres's voice startled her. He stood in the doorway, looking uncertain. Sorry, Oracle told me you were here. I can leave if... No, please, stay. She gestured to the space beside her. I was just thinking about your people, trying to imagine what they were like. Torres moved closer, gazing at the star field beyond the transparent hull. We were loud, chaotic, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. We argued about everything, created art about nothing, and loved with a passion that sometimes scared other species. And you fought like nothing else in the galaxy, Mira added. That too. He smiled sadly. We had a saying, humanity didn't ask for the stars, we demanded them. It was arrogance and hope mixed together. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Mira noticed how the starlight caught in his dark eyes, how his breathing synchronized with the ship's ambient rhythm. He was alien to her, yet somehow familiar. Perhaps pain and duty were universal languages. Tell me about your world, Torres said suddenly. About the coalition, about everything that happened after we vanished. So she did. She told him about the convergence, how 6 species had united when the Haraxian Empire threatened to dominate the outer rim. She described her homeworld, Valara Prime, with its triple moons and singing crystals. She spoke of the fragile peace that held the galaxy together, of trade routes and cultural exchanges, of small wars and smaller victories. Torres listened intently, occasionally asking questions that revealed a keen tactical mind. But mostly, he just listened, and Mira realized he was starving for connection, for proof that civilization had endured in humanity's absence. Your people sound remarkable, he said finally. Flawed but trying. That's more than humanity managed in the end. You're being too hard on yourself. On your species. Maybe. He turned to face her fully. Captain Valen, Mira, if I may? She nodded, surprised by how much she wanted him to use her name. Mira, the swarm doesn't stay defeated. They retreat, regenerate, evolve, and return stronger. If I survived in stasis for 300 years, it's because Oracle calculated the swarm's regeneration cycle. They're coming back. How long do we have? Oracle estimates 6 months, maybe less. The swarm will hit the outer colonies first, testing defenses, learning the galaxy's new patterns. Then they'll strike everywhere at once. Mira felt the weight of it settle on her shoulders. 6 months to convince the coalition that an extinct species' warning was genuine. 6 months to prepare for an enemy beyond comprehension. Torres must have seen her expression because he stepped closer. I know how it sounds. I know they might not believe me, but I have to try. We have to try. We, Mira repeated softly. I like that word. He smiled, genuinely this time, and the expression transformed his face. For a moment, he wasn't a soldier awakened from a nightmare. He was just a man, hopeful and determined. Thank you, Torres said, for not treating me like a ghost or a relic. For listening. Thank you for trusting me enough to speak. They stood close now, close enough that Mira could feel the warmth radiating from him, so different from her species' cooler biology. The observation deck's lights dimmed automatically for night cycle, leaving only starlight between them. The stars looked the same, Torres murmured. 300 years, and they're exactly where I remember them. It's strange. Everything changed, but the universe didn't notice. Maybe that's comforting, Mira offered. Some things endure. He looked at her then, really looked, and Mira saw the walls he'd built begin to lower. Yeah, maybe it is. The awakening bond. The following weeks transformed the Covenant's Edge and the Vanguard into a hybrid command center. Ambassador Kreeth worked tirelessly to convince coalition leadership that Torres's warning was genuine, while Dax and his engineering team studied human technology with reverent obsession. Mira found herself spending more time with Torres, officially to coordinate defensive strategies, but increasingly because his presence had become something she looked forward to. He moved through spaces with unconscious grace, his alien mannerisms slowly becoming familiar. The way he ran his hand through his hair when frustrated, how his eyes crinkled when he found something genuinely amusing. The quiet intensity he brought to everything he did. She noticed other things too. How he always positioned himself near exits, warrior instinct never fully dormant. How he sometimes paused mid-sentence, listening to something only he could hear, probably Oracle speaking through his neural implant. How he grew quiet when anyone mentioned Earth, the wound of loss still raw. They were reviewing tactical simulations in the Vanguard's strategy room when Torres suddenly stopped mid-sentence. You keep staring at my hands. Why? Mira startled, embarrassed at being caught. I'm sorry. It's just, your species' hands are fascinating. 5 digits, such precise articulation. On Valara, we evolved with 4 fingers, and we lost some dexterity in favor of strength. Torres held up his hands, examining them as if seeing them anew. I never thought about it. They're just hands. He flexed his fingers. Want to see something interesting? Without waiting for an answer, he moved to the room's control panel. His fingers danced across the interface faster than Mira could track, and suddenly the star map transformed into something beautiful. A 3-dimensional representation of human space, with trade routes appearing as golden threads connecting worlds. This was humanity's reach, Torres said quietly. 237 colony worlds, 47 first contact species, and 1 home planet that we loved more than we probably should have. Mira moved closer to study the display. What happened to Earth? It's still there, probably. We evacuated 90% of the population before we had to choose. Use Earth's resources for the last evacuation fleets or use them to power the planetary defense grid and buy 3 more weeks. His voice went hollow. Command chose the defense grid. You weren't part of that decision. No, but I followed the orders that came from it. He closed the display with a gesture that seemed to close a door on painful memories. Sorry, you didn't come here for a history lesson in human tragedy. I came here to understand you, Mira said honestly. The soldier, yes, but also the person. Torres turned to her, surprise and something warmer flickering in his expression. Why? Because understanding builds trust. And trust is what we'll need when... She paused as proximity alarms wailed through both ships. They ran to the bridge together. The view screen showed 3 coalition vessels dropping out of FTL, but these weren't friendly reinforcements. Admiral Soren Kell's face appeared, his reptilian features twisted in bureaucratic hostility. Captain Valen, you are hereby ordered to stand down and transfer custody of the human to coalition security. The Council has determined that awakening an extinct species war machine presents an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. Mira's hands clenched. Admiral, with respect, Lieutenant Torres is the only person who understands. I don't take tactical advice from a captain who's been compromised by contact with a potential threat. Transfer the human now, or I will board your vessel by force. Torres stepped beside Mira, his presence solid and reassuring. Captain, it's okay, I'll go. I don't want you caught in... No. The word came out harder than Mira intended. She turned to face him. You're not a prisoner, and you're not a threat. You're a person who deserves to be heard. Captain. Oracle, Mira called out. Can the Vanguard operate independently? The ship's AI materialized as a hologram, a woman with silver hair and knowing eyes. All primary systems are operational, Captain Valen. However, Lieutenant Torres's neural interface provides optimal combat efficiency. May I inquire as to your intentions? Mira looked at Torres, at the coalition ships surrounding them, and made a choice that would change everything. We're leaving, together. We'll find the proof of the swarm's return ourselves. Admiral Kell's voice turned cold. That would be desertion, Captain. Treason against the coalition. Then I'm a traitor. Mira signaled her crew. All personnel report to escape pods. You have 5 minutes to evacuate before I transfer command to the Vanguard. Torres grabbed her arm gently. Mira, you can't throw away your career for what? For the truth? For the only person who can save us from an enemy we don't even remember. She met his eyes. Or maybe I'm doing it because in 3 weeks, I've come to respect you more than I've respected anyone in my entire military career. Something shifted in Torres's expression. Surprise giving way to understanding. Understanding warming into something neither of them had names for yet. Oracle. Prepare to jump, Torres ordered, his voice steady, despite the chaos around them. Captain Valen, your crew? Already evacuating. They're good people, they understand. Mira moved to the helm. Where are we going? Sector 14. Oracle detected temporal anomalies there, the kind the swarm leaves when they start pushing through dimensional barriers. We get proof, we bring it back, and we shove it down the Council's throat until they have to believe us. The last escape pod launched. Mira transferred her command codes to the Vanguard, feeling the ship's massive systems respond to her neural signature. Torres worked beside her, their movements falling into natural synchronization, as if they'd crewed together for years instead of weeks. Admiral Kell is charging weapons, Oracle reported calmly. Can we outrun them? Mira asked. Torres smiled, sharp and confident. Captain, this ship was built to outrun nightmares. 3 coalition battle cruisers don't even rate as a warm-up. Hold on! The Vanguard surged forward with power that pressed Mira back into her seat. Space stretched, twisted, and suddenly they were gone, leaving Admiral Kell's fury and the Coalition's fear far behind. In the quiet after the jump, with only the two of them on a ship designed for thousands, the reality of what they'd done settled in. Mira found Torres in the observation deck again, staring at stars that were now light years away from everything they'd known. "Regrets?" he asked without turning. "Not yet." She joined him at the window. "Ask me again when we're dodging swarm vanguards." "Fair enough." He finally looked at her. "Why did you really do it? And don't give me the tactical reasoning. I've read enough mission reports to know when someone's following their head versus their heart." Mira considered lying, falling back on professional distance. But they'd crossed that line the moment she'd declared herself a traitor for him. "Because when I look at you, I don't see an alien or a relic or a security risk. I see someone who gave everything for people who weren't even his own kind. Someone who chose to protect strangers because it was right, not because it was ordered." She took a breath. "And because somewhere between your awakening and now, I started caring about what happens to you. As a person, not as a resource or a tactical asset." Torres was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. 300 years. Everyone I knew, everyone I loved is dust. I woke up alone in a galaxy that forgot my species existed. I thought," he paused, struggling, "I thought I'd never feel connected to anything again. And now?" He turned to face her fully, close enough that she could see gold flecks in his brown eyes. "Now I'm standing in a stolen warship with a captain who committed treason to give me a chance. And I'm realizing that maybe being alone isn't about time or distance. Maybe it's just about whether you let someone in." Mira's breath caught. The space between them felt charged, electric with possibility and danger. She knew crossing this line would complicate everything, but complications suddenly seemed less important than the truth thrumming between them. "Jack," she said, using his name intimately for the first time. "We're about to fly into hell itself. The swarm, the coalition, may be worse. Are you sure this is—" He closed the distance, his hand coming up to cup her face with surprising gentleness. His touch was warm, so different from her species' physiology, and his thumb brushed across her cheek with reverent care. "I've never been more sure of anything," he said quietly. "I don't know what happens next. I don't know if we'll survive what's coming. But I know that right now, in this moment, you're the most real thing I've felt in 300 years. Mira leaned into his touch, her own hand coming up to cover his. Their biology was different. Her skin cooler, luminescent patterns flickering with emotion, his warmth steady and human. But the connection between them transcended physical differences. "Then let's make it count," she whispered. "Whatever time we have." He smiled, and it was like watching the sun break through clouds. "Whatever time we have." They stood together in the starlight, two souls from different worlds, bound by choice and courage, and something neither could name but both recognized. Behind them, the vanguard hummed with ancient power, carrying them toward answers and danger. Ahead, the void waited with its secrets. Storm on the horizon. The journey to Sector 14 took 6 days. Mira and Torres fell into an easy rhythm aboard the Vanguard, dividing responsibilities and stealing quiet moments between preparations. Oracle proved to be an unexpectedly delightful companion, offering dry commentary on their growing connection and sharing carefully curated stories of humanity's better moments. Lieutenant Torres was quite popular with his crew. Oracle mentioned one morning while Mira was reviewing sensor data, 17 formal requests for transfer to his command, and he wrote personal recommendations for 12 of them when they moved to evacuation fleet assignments. Torres, working nearby on weapons calibrations, shot the AI a look. "Oracle, are you showing her my service record?" "Merely providing context for Captain Valen's tactical assessments. You're matchmaking. I am a warship AI, Lieutenant." "I do not engage in such frivolous—" Oracle paused. "Though I will note that your serotonin levels have increased 43% since establishing emotional bonds with the captain. From a combat efficiency standpoint, this is quite advantageous." Mira couldn't help laughing at Torres's embarrassed expression. These moments of lightness felt precious, stolen from the darkness they were flying toward. But the laughter died when they reached Sector 14. The view screen showed a graveyard. 36 ships floated dead in space, their hulls torn open as if by massive claws. But worse than the destruction was what hung between the wrecks. Tears in space itself. wounds in reality that pulsed with sickly purple light. Dimensional fractures, Torres said, his voice tight. Early stage. The swarm is testing the barriers, seeing how much they can push through before committing to a full invasion. How long until they break through completely? Weeks, maybe less. He enhanced the image. See those energy patterns? That's swarm biosignatures. They're already sending scouts through. Small ones, but deadly. As if summoned by his words, something moved in the wreckage. It was difficult to focus on. The eye kept sliding away as if reality itself rejected its existence. Roughly the size of a shuttle, it had too many angles, limbs that bent in directions that shouldn't exist, and a hunger that Mira could feel even through the view screen. Oracle, begin recording, Torres ordered. Full spectrum analysis. This is evidence the Coalition can't ignore. Recording initiated. Lieutenant, I should note that the entity has detected our presence. It is approaching. The thing accelerated with impossible speed. Torres moved to the weapons station. Shields up. Mira, get us some distance. I need to show the Coalition exactly how dangerous these things are. Mira pushed the Vanguard into evasive maneuvers while Torres activated targeting systems. The swarm scout hit their shields with force that made the deck shudder. Reality flickered at the impact point, space itself groaning under the assault. It's trying to phase through the shields, Torres explained, firing a precision burst from the point defense grid. The blast connected, and the scout writhed, pieces of its impossible anatomy dissolving. They exist partially in our dimension and partially in theirs. Makes them hard to kill. How did humanity fight them? With lots of firepower, dimensional anchors to lock them into our reality, and casualties we couldn't afford. He fired again, and the scout finally came apart, its death throes sending ripples through space. But we learned. That's what the Vanguard class was designed for. Weapons that could hurt them, shields that could hold them back. Oracle, did you capture everything? Affirmative, Captain. The recording includes detailed analysis of swarm physiology, attack patterns, and dimensional manipulation. Combined with your status as Coalition officers, this evidence should prove compelling. Should, Torres muttered. Let's hope it's enough. They were preparing to return to Coalition space when the Vanguard's long-range sensors detected something else. A massive energy signature emerging from one of the dimensional tiers. It was far larger than the Scout, and it was heading directly for the nearest inhabited system. That's a swarm harvester, Torres said, his face going pale. If it reaches that colony world, how many people? Mira asked, though she dreaded the answer. 11 million, according to the navigation database. Torres's hands moved across the controls. We have to stop it. Jack, we have the evidence. We can bring it to the Coalition, mobilize a proper defense. There's no time. A harvester that size will reach the colony in 14 hours. By the time we convinced the Council and they deployed fleets, it would be over. He looked at her, and she saw the same choice he'd made 300 years ago written in his eyes. I didn't survive the fall of humanity just to watch another species get devoured. Not when I can do something about it. Mira's heart sank because she knew he was right, and because she knew what came next. One ship against that thing. The Vanguard was built for this. I was trained for this. He crossed to her, taking both her hands in his. But I won't ask you to stay. Oracle can drop you at the nearest station. You can take the evidence to the Coalition yourself. She looked at their joined hands, hers glowing faintly with bioluminescence, his steady and warm. Do you really think I'd leave you now? Mira, we're partners, Jack, in this fight and whatever comes after. I'm not leaving. Something fierce and tender crossed his face. He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers in a gesture that transcended species. I don't deserve you. Good thing I'm not asking for permission. They stood together for a heartbeat, drawing strength from each other. Then Torres stepped back, his expression shifting into the focused intensity of a soldier preparing for battle. Oracle, plot an intercept course. Charge all weapons systems. Transfer shield control to Captain Valen. She'll coordinate defensive maneuvers while I handle offensive operations. Acknowledged, Lieutenant. May I say that I calculate your survival probability at 68%, which is considerably higher than your last engagement with a Harvester-class entity. I survived last time with 30% odds. Let's see what we can do with better chances. He glanced at Mira and smiled. Ready? Ready. The Vanguard surged forward, and the void seemed to hold its breath. Behind them, the evidence of the swarm's return. Ahead, a battle that would determine if humanity's final guardian could protect a galaxy that had forgotten his people. And between them, something precious and fragile and strong, two hearts beating as one, defying the darkness together. The Harvester was a nightmare given form. Where the Scout had been disturbing, this was overwhelming. A mass of writhing darkness that seemed to eat the light around it. Tendrils longer than battleships reached out, tasting space, hungry for the life it sensed on the distant colony world. It's even bigger than the records showed, Torres muttered, studying tactical displays. Oracle, what are we working with? Dimensional weapons charged to 80%. Conventional armaments ready. Shield integrity at maximum. Lieutenant, I should note that harvesters typically require sustained fire from multiple capital ships to neutralize. Then we'll just have to be creative. Torres opened fleet-wide communications. This is Lieutenant Jack Torres of the Earth Defense Force aboard the warship Vanguard. To any coalition vessels in range, a swarm harvester is en route to the Thera colony. Intercept coordinates follow. If you can hear this, we need immediate reinforcement. Silence answered. They were too far from established patrol routes, and faster-than-light communication took time to propagate. Looks like it's just us, Mira said, her hands steady on the helm despite her racing heart. Just us, Torres agreed. Like old times. He activated the Vanguard's primary weapons arrays, and the ship seemed to growl with barely contained power. Mira, I need you to get us close, right into its killing range. The dimensional anchors only work at short distance. How close? Close enough to see the hunger in its non-eyes. She smiled despite the terror. Romantic. I try. They dove toward the Harvester, the Vanguard moving with grace that belied its size. The swarm entity noticed, its attention shifting from the distant colony to this unexpected challenger. Tendrils lashed out, each one capable of tearing through armor like tissue. Mira wove between them, her piloting instincts enhanced by the Vanguard's responsive controls. Torres fired in controlled bursts, targeting connection points where tendrils met the main body. Each hit sent ripples through the creature, but it kept coming. Dimensional anchors activating, Torres announced. Hold her steady. 3, 2, 1 now. The Vanguard released a pulse of energy that made reality solidify around them. The Harvester screamed, a sound that existed in the mind rather than air, as it was forced fully into their dimension. Its form became more defined, more vulnerable. There you are, Torres whispered. Oracle main cannons. Everything we've got. The Vanguard opened fire with weapons designed by a desperate species facing extinction. Beams of concentrated energy, missiles that warped space around them, and the devastating dimensional ripper, all struck the Harvester simultaneously. The creature writhed, parts of it dissolving, but it fought back. A tendril smashed into their shields and alarms shrieked across the bridge. Mira compensated, spinning the ship to distribute the impact. Shields at 70%, she reported. Not good enough. Oracle, transfer auxiliary power to forward shields. We're going in. That is inadvisable. Do it. They punched through the Harvester's outer defenses, so close now that Mira could see the impossible geometry of its form, the way it bent light and reason. Torres fired continuously, targeting what his record suggested was a core structure. The Harvester wrapped around them, tendrils scratching at shields, reality buckling under the assault. Warning lights painted the bridge red, shields at 40%. Almost there. Torres's hands flew across controls. One more shot. Just one more. The core exposed itself for a fraction of a second. Torres didn't hesitate. He fired the dimensional ripper at point-blank range, and reality itself shrieked. The Harvester came apart. Not an explosion, an unmaking. It folded in on itself, dimensions collapsing, existence rewinding until there was nothing left but dissipating energy and the echo of something vast and terrible dying. The Vanguard tumbled free, shields failing, emergency power barely maintaining life support. Mira fought to stabilize their trajectory while Torres checked damage reports. We're alive, he said. Sounding surprised, Oracle's 68% was optimistic, Mira managed. Her hands shaking now that adrenaline was fading. Indeed, Oracle agreed. However, we succeeded. The colony is safe, and we have documented proof of swarm capability. More importantly, we have demonstrated that the Vanguard remains combat effective. Torres left his station and moved to Mira, pulling her into an embrace that felt like coming home. She wrapped her arms around him, feeling his heart hammering against her cheek, proof that they'd survived the impossible. I love you. he said quietly. I know this is fast. I know we barely know each other. But after 300 years of being alone, I recognize something worth holding on to when I find it. Mira looked up at him, her bioluminescent patterns flaring bright with emotion. I love you too. Both the soldier and the man, both the legend and the person. He kissed her then, and it was everything, fierce and gentle, desperate and certain, human and alien and perfect. In that moment, the galaxy's problems faded. There was only this connection, this choice to love in the face of darkness. When they finally parted, Oracle's voice carried unmistakable satisfaction. Fleet signatures detected, multiple coalition vessels approaching, Admiral Kell's flagship among them. They heard our distress call, Mira said. Or they tracked us down to arrest me, Torres added wryly. Either way, they're about to get an eyeful of evidence. Mira took his hand. Whatever happens next, we face it together. Together, he agreed. The Sentinel's promise. Admiral Kell's face dominated the view screen, his reptilian features locked in an expression somewhere between fury and shock. Behind him, a dozen coalition ships maintained firing positions around the damaged Vanguard, but none had opened fire yet. Captain Valen, Lieutenant Torres, Kell said tightly, you have committed multiple violations of coalition law, endangered civilian populations, and operated a weapons platform that should be... He stopped abruptly. What in the void happened to my Thera colony? The swarm happened, Torres replied calmly. Or rather, what would have happened if we hadn't been here? Oracle, transmit all recorded data to the Admiral's flagship. Full spectrum analysis of dimensional fractures, swarm biosignatures, and our engagement with a Harvester-class entity. Data flooded across coalition systems. Mira watched Kell's expression shift as his science officers confirmed what they were seeing. Horror replaced anger. Realization dawned where skepticism had been. This is genuine, one of Kell's officers reported off-screen. Admiral, these dimensional signatures match legends from the Great Silence period. If the lieutenant's assessment is correct, we have weeks before incursion events begin galaxy-wide. Kell was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of command rather than bureaucratic hostility. Lieutenant Torres, on behalf of the Coalition, I apologize for doubting your warning. Captain Valen, your actions, while technically treasonous, have saved millions of lives and provided intelligence we desperately need. He paused. Now tell me how we fight these things. Torres straightened, slipping into the role of tactical advisor as if 3 centuries hadn't passed. We need a coordinated defense. The swarm tests isolated targets first, learns from our responses, then adapts. Humanity's mistake was fighting them separately, each fleet acting independently while the swarm learned from every encounter. We can't repeat that error. What do you propose? A unified fleet doctrine? Dimensional anchor technology integrated into all capital ships. Weapons tuned to destabilize swarm bioforms. And we need to establish choke points at every dimensional weak spot we can identify. Torres pulled up star charts. These 18 systems are most vulnerable based on the fracture patterns we observed. Fortify them, and we force the swarm into predictable attack vectors. Ambassador Kreeth's hologram materialized beside Kell's. Lieutenant, you're describing a defensive posture that requires unprecedented cooperation between coalition species. Some of our member states barely tolerate each other. Then they'll die separately, Torres said bluntly. I've seen what happens when civilizations prioritize politics over survival. The swarm doesn't care about your territorial disputes or trade disagreements. It cares about consuming everything you are and ever will be. He's right, Mira interjected. We've all seen the evidence now. The question isn't whether we can afford to work together, it's whether we can afford not to. Kell studied them both with calculating eyes. The Council will need to convene. This changes everything. Captain Valen, can the Vanguard make it to Coalition Central? With repairs, yes. Then you'll both escort us back. Lieutenant Torres, prepare to present your tactical analysis to the full Council. And Captain Valen, he almost smiled, you're going to have an interesting conversation with the judiciary about your recent career decisions. I'll take interesting over catastrophic, sir. The journey to Coalition Central took 3 days. In that time, the galaxy began to change. Word of the swarm's return spread through official channels and civilian networks simultaneously. Some species panicked, others denied. but most recognized the threat and began preparing. Mira found Torres in the Vanguard's observation deck on their final night before arrival. He stood at the viewport, watching the distant glow of Coalition Central grow brighter. "Nervous?" she asked, joining him. "Terrified," he admitted. 300 years ago, I was just a fleet lieutenant. Now I'm supposed to guide an entire galactic coalition through an extinction-level threat. What if I'm not enough? What if they listen to me and I'm wrong? You're not wrong. We've both seen the evidence. But what if my tactics are outdated? What if humanity's approach doesn't work for species that think and fight differently? He turned to her. "Mira, entire civilizations are going to live or die based on my recommendations." She took his hands. "Gear,